Davis, and then Saturday, Milwaukee Pacific, both 7 o'clock start times. Questions, guys?
Coach, I guess I'll get you going. On Thursday, I guess you had a tough game with UCSP.
I guess we had a tough game.
It was a great game nonetheless, but exciting, I should say.
Yeah.
You turned it around, though, and you played a pretty good game. I mean, how were you able to do that and pick those guys up off the floor?
Well, I think you mentioned it. It was a great game. Thursday night's game was a great game. And then what we tried to make sure even immediately after the game, the players didn't lose sight that we played well. It was a well-played game. The shooting percentage was high. The assist-turnover ratio was good. The defense on both sides was good. There was plays made, big plays. We just don't want to lose sight that Thursday wasn't a complete flop and failure. It was a good game that we lost by 0.5 seconds. So that was number one. And then number two was we skipped our Friday meeting and went straight to the floor and just made sure that we got back on the horse, so to speak. Sometimes if you go a day and then you try to rehash the game and watch film, it just makes you sick. And our theory was, no, forget it. Let's get on the floor and practice right away. We had a good, real spirited, competitive practice on Friday. Then we did our scouting report. Then we traveled to Bakersfield, and kind of was cathartic to get through that emotional, get to a practice and just get on the floor. And we had a goal established earlier in the year about winning 2 of the 4 games against California teams that weren't guaranteed games. And, by going on the road and playing Bakersfield meant a lot to our guys because it was a game that, A, we lost last year at Bakersfield, and B, it was a game that would give us 2-2 record against in-state opponents that we had home-and-home contracts with. And so we were able to get the Pepperdine win and get this win, put us 2-2, which is really one of our big goals. The guys had a lot of pride, and they had a lot of, they felt like we were a team that is playing well, and that I kept reminding that don't let this hangover effect that you have in sports where it's the big loss carry into the next thing. We got to be deeper than that, emotionally and physically. And we were, and it was one of our best games in many ways, field goal shooting percentage, and in other areas as well.
So you guys you're 4-4 at the halfway point. I think tied for third. I know you were 4-2 at one point. Overall, when you look at 4-4, are you happy with the first half of the season, and what are your expectations in the second half?
Yeah, I think 4-4. You have to look at 4-4 within a context. If we were 4-4 and 4 teams were separating, that'd be a different kind of 4-4. But 4-4 is given the context that every team but one team has 4 losses or 4 wins. They're a half game between second place. I think that Northridge is 5-3, and then there may be a half game to a 1 full game between second and 9th. And so that context simply says we're right in the middle of a conference that's right in the middle of identifying what I said after the very first conference game. Long Beach State, to me, had identified itself as the favorite by going on the road and beating Santa Barbara and Cal Poly on the road to start off with. And they've been knocked off a few times, but they still have, risen to the top of that. Then after that, it's Northridge on through. It's anybody's opportunity to be second, and it's anybody's opportunity to be ninth. I think the most important part is health and rhythm. How are you playing lately? And I think that's really where we're at, and that's why we're really pleased. I think Bakersfield means something. It means that we're playing well, we shot well, we passed well, we defended well. We implemented a scouting report really well. So I'm pleased with 4-4 because I think we're playing our best basketball. We were 5-3 during the month of January, and if we can have a record similar or improved on that, we'll be in great position to make the Big West tournament and be playing better basketball for March. That's ultimately what you want to be doing, is playing your best basketball in March.
Over the last 4 games, I did some math, and you're 2-2, and you're averaging 69 points a game. You're giving up 68 points a game, so it's almost a wash.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a big turnaround, both offensively and defensively. Is it just a matter of the team evolving and just the team over the course of the season kind of changing a little bit? What do you see in the last 4 games?
I think there's 3 or 4 factors go on. One is we have a little more depth. We got 3 or 4 guys back, just having a little more depth in there. Chris O'Brien's been in the lineup, gives us a little more depth to run and defend at a higher rate. fact that these guys have been together 15 to 18 games, that they're understanding their role. I think Sean Lewis brought it up. I think we have a lot of guys that can knock down shots, but you have to have the confidence to knock down shots and make shots at 7 o'clock at night when someone's guarding you and there's referees out there. And so I think that's been important. And then also I think that, teams have taken away one area, and so it's opened up perimeter shots that are a little more, they've concentrated a little bit more on interior action, which when we post up Sean or we post up Malik, we're kind of a guard-oriented post-up, and David at times. So we've learned how to play off each other. We've complemented each other better on the offensive end. And so I think that's a big part of it, too, and just the comfort level, scouting reports, counter reports, and then our guys developing and improving and being conscientious about, we want to keep on getting some opportunity breaks and the fast breaks. We want second opportunities by going after offensive boards. So it's been a incremental improvement. I don't think we've gone from 50 to 80. We've gone an 8 or 10 point improvement. And then the other part with it, which is weird about that, and it's always distorted in stats, is that if you're ahead in the game at the end of the game, like the other night at Bakersfield, it shows that we scored 70. What did we score? 77 points. Well, the game was a 60-point game. In the last 2 minutes, they fouled every possession. We went to the free throw line, made maybe 8 or 10 free throws, and it's got an easy basket here and there. And so suddenly your final score is a little ballooned, similar to what it was against Northridge, where their final score was quite distorted in what the game was like. This was really a 4 or 5 point game to the last 2 minutes, and we win by the final numbers 77-61, which is not indicative of the game at all. And so I think that's really kind of sometimes statistically you get really distorted by taking a four game stat, putting it in there, and we didn't score 77. We scored about 65. To be honest.
Looks good in the box score, though.
Yeah, it does.
Hey, looking at this week, big games, obviously on your home floor, which we know you guys always want to win. 2 teams you beat on their home floor,
right.
So if you sweep them, you have that tiebreaker, which is probably going to be huge as the conference schedule unfolds. Talk about the importance this week, what how you approach it, having played these teams before, having beaten them, and really the magnitude of these 2 games.
Well, first game with Davis, we're actually going into the Davis game as if it's a brand new scouting report. It's not the team that we played. They're all conference player. Payne was not healthy the game we played him, as well as another senior. Payne is a returning all-conference nominee and was injured, and so is the Lowenthal kid. The 2 seniors were not healthy when we played them up there, and so we're actually looking at this as a new game. The scouting report, their team flows completely different with those 2 seniors in the game. So they had played quite a few young kids up there. So the pace of the game was much slower. Now they're playing with Payne back. He's kind of he's a point guard at 6'7", 6'8", plays point guard, 2 guard, 3 guard, or 4-man. He's kind of starting as a 4-man. So their style of play is a little different now. They're a little more up-tempo. They're a little more movement, and then we're scoring more. So I think the game was ridiculously low in the 40s and 50s. Both games were at Pacific and Davis, and I think that I don't anticipate that happening. Again, I think both teams are willing to get up and down a little bit more, shooting a little bit, easier. We were very specifically grinding it out before with our depth and kind of finding ourselves and just finding a way to compete to the end. So I think we'll look at a little more up-tempo. Both teams, if you look at the scores that the other night, again, that's a little distorted because they went to a double. Irvine and Davis went to a double overtime game. They included a number of free throws, last-second shots. So you're looking at, I think it was 107 to 104 game. At regulation, I think it was in the 70s, and then 2 overtimes. So we're looking at a really good team and a really hungry team, and we're looking at a team that's playing their best now. And so huge weekend. But at the same time, it's every single game in conference you look at, it's a team wins a game, they go to second, they lose a game, they go to fifth. You go up, you go down, and still, we got to concentrate on one game on Thursday and play our best basketball.
Coach, playing 5 out of 6 at home, it seems like you guys have always been on the road this season or for huge chunks of it. Now this is your real first chance to have a long stretch at home. With so many key games coming up, talk about what kind of advantage that is for your guys, and maybe how do you prevent them from being distracted as far as now they are home and they can
Well, I'm not as worried about the distraction end of things as much as it's so nice to be home in February. Because that's when the road really kicks your ears. Is that when you've traveled, you've been traveling, now you got to go on the road in February. If you look nationally at the top 25 teams, it's not hard to look at how many upsets there were this weekend alone. I mean, the percentage of it kind of happens every year that you hit mid-January and the thrill of traveling kind of wears out, and top teams get knocked off this time of year on a pretty frequent basis. They're injured, they're tired, they're fatigued, the emotional stamina is one. So just being home allows you to kind of be in position to give your best, emotional forward. It's just not another hotel room and so forth. So the one game we go on the road is Irvine, and it's a down and back. It's a one-night, overnight game. So I think that will help us as well. So just getting more bodies healthy, being at home, playing our best ball this time of year. We think we're in great position. Looking back at the schedule before the year started, we said, well, if we can be in decent position by February, if we're competitive in February, maybe we can put a little bit of a run and play our best basketball when we have 5 of 6 home. That includes a bracket buster game.
Speaking of the bracket buster, I know you don't know your opponent or if it will be on TV or anything like that, but just kind of talk about participating in the bracket buster with all these other conferences and potentially playing a school that normally Cal Poly wouldn't have come into town.
Well, I'm a very big proponent. Some coaches are not big fans of the bracket buster, but I think college basketball needs this type of stuff. Men's college basketball has to have you have to sell the sizzle, and you have to continue to sell. That's how the Big East became the Big East when ESPN became involved with it. And there's a lot of things that go on that kind of, like I said, teams that come here, or we go someplace that we would never have gone. I think it's important for us, and probably the most important part of it, it keeps us in a little bit of a routine because we play a Saturday game. And I at this point, people say, well, why did you play Bakersfield? I said, I like playing. I like to continue with that routine during the bye week. Sometimes I don't like just having okay, let's take a day off because we don't have the game. I like staying in a routine every Wednesday and Saturday, or every Thursday and Saturday, depending on what's going on. So the game will be moved a day earlier to Wednesday, and then we'll play the bracket buster on the Saturday and at home. And it's somebody that we don't know yet, and we'll have to scramble to get some video and a film exchange with them. But I think it's healthy for us, because if you want to be in the tournament, that's kind of what your life is like as well, kind of the surprise, a team that you don't know much about, a system you don't know much about, a lot of phone calls and watching tape and getting excited for it. But that's exciting for fans as well as coaches and players. I don't think Bracket Buster is just a fan-friendly deal. I think it's good for the coaches. I think it's good for the players. I think it's good for the community. Who's coming to town? We'll find out hopefully in the next 4 or 5 hours.
Thanks, Coach.